What if you woke up one day and realized that the life you've been living is filled with people, but no real connection? What if you smiled through every conversation, nodded at every joke, laughed when expected to, but inside you felt completely alone? This isn't just about being single or having a small circle. This is deeper. This is about waking up in silence, even when surrounded by noise. It's about scrolling endlessly through contacts but not feeling close to anyone. It's the quiet ache of being physically present but emotionally invisible. You may have friends on social media, group chats lighting up your screen and plans you say yes to out of habit, but still feel like no one truly knows you, like you're playing a role in your own life, pretending everything is fine while something deep inside screams for more, for real laughter, real trust, real love. The kind that doesn't fade when you stop texting for a few days, the kind that stays even when things get messy. This is what it means to be a woman with no real friends, not because she hasn't tried, not because she isn't worthy, but because somewhere along the way connection became complicated, painful even. Maybe she reached out before and got hurt. Maybe she opened her heart and was met with judgment, betrayal, or silence. And so, slowly, she learned how to protect herself. She built walls, not because she didn't want love, but because she couldn't afford another loss. She stopped calling, stopped asking, stopped needing. And now she sits with this strange emptiness, wondering why, despite all the distractions, she feels more alone than ever. You know that moment, when everyone else seems to have someone to call at 2 a.m., but you don't? When you scroll past photos of friend groups laughing together and feel like you're watching a movie you'll never be part of? That's not weakness. That's human nature. We are wired to belong, to connect. Without real relationships, we begin to lose pieces of ourselves. Our joy dims. Our confidence wavers. Our sense of purpose fades, because no matter how strong we appear, no one survives fully alone. But here's the truth: loneliness doesn't mean you're unlovable. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It simply means you've been surviving in a world that didn't always give you what you needed, and now you're ready to change that. Because the woman who feels invisible today is not invisible at all. She is seen right now, in this moment. She matters. Her pain matters. Her longing for real connection is valid and powerful. And if she can find the courage to face this loneliness head on, she will discover something extraordinary, the ability to heal, to grow, and to finally build the kind of friendship she deserves. That's why you're still watching. That's why you clicked. Because something inside you knows that this story isn't just hers, it's yours too. And if you keep listening, you'll hear something that changes everything. You'll learn how loneliness affects your body, your mind, and your future. You'll understand why you've been pushing people away, even when you wanted them closer. And most importantly, you'll discover how to break free from the cycle and start building real, meaningful connections again. It won't happen overnight, but it will happen if you're willing to take the first step. So let's begin. You've felt it. How loneliness doesn't just sit quietly in the background. It grows. It spreads like a slow fog, clouding your confidence, whispering that maybe you're too much or not enough. Maybe people don't really want to hear what you have to say, or maybe they're only around out of habit, and so you begin to doubt even the small connections you do have. But here's something science has proven: chronic loneliness does more than hurt emotionally. It changes your body. It increases inflammation, weakens your immune system, and speeds up aging. Your brain interprets isolation the same way it interprets physical danger, like you're standing alone in the wilderness with no tribe to protect you. That's not just sadness. That's survival mode. And yet, many of us live this way for years, pretending everything is fine while silently breaking down inside. Why? Because we've learned to ignore the signals. We've convinced ourselves that being alone is safer than risking rejection, that silence is better than disappointment. But every time we choose isolation over connection, we deny our true nature. We are not meant to walk through life without real support, without someone who knows how you take your coffee, who remembers your fears, your dreams, your heartbreaks. Someone who shows up when it's inconvenient, who listens without fixing, who stays even when things get messy. This isn't about having hundreds of friends. It's about having at least one person who sees you, not just your smile, but what's behind it, not just your words, but what you're afraid to say. Real connection isn't built on surface-level interactions. It's built on trust, vulnerability, and the courage to let someone in, even when you're terrified they might leave. But how do you get there when every attempt before has ended in pain? That's where most give up. They tell themselves they're better off alone, that they don't need anyone, that they're strong enough on their own. But strength isn't about surviving alone. It's about knowing when to reach out, when to ask for help, when to say, I'm hurting, I need someone, Because the truth is, if you keep living as if you don't need others, you'll start believing it. You'll build walls so high you won't even recognize the sound of your own longing anymore. And by then, loneliness won't feel like a wound. It'll feel like home. So how do you break free from a pattern that feels normal? By first understanding where it came from. Many of us learned early on that showing emotion wasn't safe. That vulnerability led to shame, judgment, or abandonment. So we shut down. We stopped asking for comfort, or we buried our needs. Over time, we became experts at self-isolation, not because we wanted to be alone, but because it was the only way we knew how to survive. Dr. Gabor Maté once said, "Human beings are not broken. We are shaped by our experiences, especially the painful ones. And those experiences taught you how to protect yourself, but now those same defenses are keeping you trapped." So what if you could rewire that instinct? What if you could learn to see connection not as a risk, but as a right, as something you were born needing and something you still deserve? Healing doesn't mean forgetting the past. It means recognizing how it shaped you and choosing to move forward differently. It starts with awareness, with saying, "I am not flawed for feeling lonely. I am human." And once you accept that, you open the door to change. Because healing doesn't happen in isolation. It happens in the presence of someone who listens. Someone who says, "I see you. You matter." And sometimes that someone starts with you. When you stop punishing yourself for feeling alone and instead begin treating yourself with compassion, something shifts. You begin to believe that you are worthy of love, of friendship, of belonging. And that belief becomes the foundation for everything else. So imagine this. What if today was the day you decided to stop hiding behind "I'm fine"? What if you allowed yourself to feel the full weight of your loneliness, not to suffer, but to finally acknowledge it, to say, "This hurts, and I deserve better"? That's not weakness. That's courage. And from that courage comes action. Small steps. A message sent. A conversation started. A boundary set. A truth spoken aloud for the first time. These moments may seem insignificant, but each one is a brick in the bridge, leading you back to connection. Because the truth you must never forget is this: you were never meant to carry this alone. You were meant to heal, to grow, and to belong. Not just in theory, but in real life, in real relationships, in real moments of joy and shared pain. So if you're still listening, it means something in you is ready to change, ready to rise above the silence, ready to build something real, and that something starts now. You've carried this silence for so long that it no longer feels like a burden. It feels like who you are. But deep down, beneath the layers of self-protection and quiet disappointment, there's a voice, a soft but persistent whisper that says, "I want more." Not just more people in your life, but more meaning, more joy, more truth, more connection with yourself and with others. That voice isn't asking for perfection. It's not demanding that you suddenly become the most social person in the room or have dozens of lifelong friends. No. What that voice is asking for is something far more powerful: authenticity, the kind of truth that lets you look someone in the eye and say, "This is me. I'm learning how to be real again." Because here's what you've learned by now: loneliness doesn't mean you're unlovable. It means you've been surviving. You've been navigating a world that didn't always offer the safety or understanding you needed. And so you built walls not because you wanted to be alone, but because you were trying to protect yourself from more pain. But those walls, as strong as they may seem, are not the foundation of a fulfilling life. They are barriers, not just to others, but to your own sense of worth. And the moment you begin to let them soften, even slightly, is the moment you reclaim your right to belong. Belonging doesn't start with other people. It starts within. It begins when you stop judging yourself for feeling lonely, when you stop believing that something is wrong with you because you haven't figured it all out yet. Because the truth is, no one has it completely figured out. We're all learning, all growing, all reaching for something deeper, even if we don't always know how to ask for it. So imagine this. What if you could finally give yourself permission to feel everything: the sadness, the longing, the fear, the hope? What if you could sit with your emotions instead of pushing them away? What if you could say to yourself, "It's okay that I'm here. I'm still worthy of love. I'm still capable of connection. I'm still enough." That shift from self-judgment to self-compassion is where healing truly begins. Because once you start treating yourself with kindness, you'll find it easier to extend that same kindness to others. Once you stop punishing yourself for being human, you'll stop expecting others to be perfect too. And when you release the pressure to always be fine, you create space for real conversations, real relationships, real healing. And here's the most powerful part. Every time you choose honesty over hiding, you inspire others to do the same. You give someone else permission to step out of their silence, to admit they're struggling, to reach out, to reconnect, not just with you, but with parts of themselves they thought were lost forever. That's the ripple effect of courage. One honest conversation can change the course of someone's entire life. One vulnerable message can lead to a friendship that lasts decades. One brave decision to show up as you are can open doors you never thought possible. So ask yourself this: if you could build just one meaningful connection, what would that mean for you? How would it change the way you see yourself? How would it shift the way you move through the world? Would it remind you that you're not broken, that you are loved even in your imperfections, that your heart still has the capacity to trust, to dream, to believe in something greater than survival? Because you do. You have that capacity right now. Even if it feels buried under years of disappointment. Even if you've forgotten what it feels like to truly connect, you are not too late. You are not too damaged. You are not beyond repair. You are simply human, and humans heal. Humans grow. Humans find their way back to each other, even after years of silence. So take a breath. Let go of the belief that you have to do this alone. Let go of the idea that you need to be perfect before you're worthy of love. Let go of the fear that if you open your heart again, it will only get hurt. Because yes, there's risk and vulnerability. But there's also freedom, there's strength, there's rebirth. And the moment you decide that loneliness no longer defines you, is the moment your journey toward real connection truly begins. So ask yourself this: are you ready to stop surviving and start living fully? Are you ready to build friendships that nourish your soul instead of drain it? Are you ready to finally feel seen, heard, and understood? If the answer is yes, and something inside you already knows it is, then keep listening, keep going. Keep believing, because the next chapter of your story is waiting, and it starts with a single brave step forward. You've spent so long protecting yourself from pain that you may have forgotten what it feels like to truly live without fear. You've learned how to survive, how to smile when you're breaking, how to laugh when you're empty, how to say I'm fine even when you're screaming inside. But surviving is not the same as living, and deep down you know it. You were never meant to carry this silence forever. You were meant to feel, to connect, to be seen, not just by others, but by yourself. And now, after all the years of hiding, something in you is ready to change. That's why you're still listening. That's why you haven't turned away. Because healing isn't about fixing what's broken. It's about remembering who you are beneath all the layers of protection. It's about reconnecting with the part of you that still believes in love, in friendship, in belonging. Even if that belief is small, even if it flickers like a candle in the wind, it is still there. And that small spark? It's enough to start again. Because real connection doesn't begin with someone else. It begins with you, with the moment you decide that loneliness no longer defines your life. With the choice to stop hiding behind I'm okay and start saying this hurts, but I am still here. So let's talk about what comes next. Not some distant future where everything is perfect, but the very next step, the one you can take right now. Because healing doesn't happen all at once. It happens in moments, in choices, in tiny acts of courage that add up to something bigger than fear. What if today was the day you chose to speak your truth out loud? What if you allowed yourself to admit that you're tired of pretending, that you want more than surface-level conversations and empty interactions, that you long for someone who truly understands you, not just the version of you that smiles through the pain, but the one that cries when no one is watching? That longing is not weakness, it is power. It is proof that you are still capable of feeling, of loving, of growing. And growth begins when you stop waiting for the perfect moment and start creating it yourself. You don't need to wait until you're ready. You don't need to wait until you feel confident or worthy or healed. Because healing doesn't come before action, it follows it. Every time you choose honesty over hiding, every time you reach out instead of retreating, you are already on the path forward. So ask yourself this: what is one small step you can take today toward real connection? Is it sending a message to someone you trust? Is it joining a group where you can meet people who share your interests? Is it simply allowing yourself to feel whatever you're feeling without judgment? Whatever it is, do it, not because you're fearless, but because you refuse to let fear make your decisions for you anymore. Because here's the truth: the more you lean into discomfort, the more freedom you reclaim. The more you allow yourself to be vulnerable, the stronger you become. And the more you show up as yourself, even when it's hard, the more space you create for others to do the same. Real friendships aren't built overnight. They're built through moments, through shared laughter and quiet support, through showing up even when it's inconvenient, through choosing each other again and again, even when things get messy. And you deserve that kind of connection, not because you've earned it by being perfect, but simply because you are human, because you feel, because you care, because you matter. So stop waiting for someone to hand you permission to belong. Take it, claim it, live as if you already know you are worthy of love, and watch how your world begins to shift. Because the moment you stop believing that you have to earn connection is the moment you open yourself up to receiving it. You are not too late. You are not too damaged. You are not beyond hope. You are exactly where you need to be, right here, right now, standing on the edge of something new, something powerful, something real. And if you keep going, if you keep choosing yourself, keep speaking your truth, keep reaching for more, you will find it. Not someday, not maybe, but today, one step at a time. You've already taken the hardest step, facing the truth. You've admitted to yourself that something is missing, that pretending is no longer enough, that you're tired of smiling through the silence and laughing without meaning it. And in that honesty you found something powerful, clarity. That clarity is not meant to keep you stuck in pain, it's meant to propel you forward. Because now you know what you deserve. You know that connection isn't a luxury or a coincidence, it's a necessity, a right, a part of being human that you were never meant to live without. And so the question becomes, what are you willing to do with this awareness? Because knowledge alone doesn't change lives. Action does. Real, consistent, uncomfortable action. The kind that asks you to show up even when you're afraid. To speak your truth even when you worry it won't be received well. To open your heart again, even though it's been broken before. That's courage. Not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. You may have spent years believing that if you just kept quiet, everything would eventually work out on its own. That if you waited long enough, someone would finally understand you without you having to explain. But real connection doesn't grow in silence. It grows in moments of bravery, in words spoken, in risks taken, in truths shared. So ask yourself, how much longer are you willing to wait for someone else to make the first move? How much longer will you allow fear to decide your future? Because the reality is no one can build your life for you. No one can heal your loneliness but you. And while support helps, while love sustains, the foundation of your journey toward connection must come from within. You have to choose yourself. You have to believe in your worth. You have to take that first step, no matter how shaky your voice feels when you say, I'm ready. Maybe that step looks like reaching out to someone you trust. Maybe it means setting a boundary that protects your energy. Maybe it's simply allowing yourself to feel the full weight of your emotions instead of pushing them away. Whatever it is, honor it. Every small act of courage counts. Because healing is not a straight line. It's messy. It's unpredictable. It's filled with setbacks and breakthroughs. Some days you'll feel like you're moving forward. Other days, you might feel like you're back at square one. But here's the secret. As long as you keep going, you are growing. And growth is what transforms pain into purpose. Every time you face your loneliness head on, you reclaim a piece of yourself that was lost. Every time you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you prove that you are stronger than fear. Every time you choose connection over isolation, you rewrite the story that once held you captive. You are not defined by your past. You are not trapped by old patterns. You are free to choose differently, right now, today. So imagine what could happen if you did. Imagine waking up tomorrow and deciding that you will no longer hide behind, I'm fine. Imagine choosing to speak your needs, even if your voice trembles. Imagine showing up exactly as you are, broken, healing, powerful, and beautifully human. What if that moment changed everything? What if the next message you send leads to a conversation that shifts your entire perspective? What if the next time you say, I need help, someone actually hears you? What if the next person who listens becomes the friend you've been longing for? It could happen, and it will if you keep going, because the universe responds to action. It rewards courage. It opens doors when you walk toward them, even if you're shaking inside. And every time you choose to believe in something greater than survival, you align yourself with the possibility of something more, something real, something lasting. You deserve friendships that see you. You deserve relationships that nourish you. You deserve to feel safe, understood, and loved, not because you earned it by being perfect, but simply because you are human. And that is enough. More than enough. So take a breath. Let go of the belief that you have to fix yourself before you're worthy of connection. Let go of the idea that you're too far gone. Let go of the fear that no one will stay, because the moment you stop waiting for permission to belong and start living as if you already do, is the moment your world begins to shift. You are not too late. You are not too damaged. You are not beyond hope. You are standing at the edge of something new, and all you have to do is take the next step. One foot in front of the other, one brave choice at a time. You've already done the hardest part, facing the truth of where you are. You've allowed yourself to feel the weight of loneliness, not as a sentence, but as a signal, a sign that something inside you is ready for more. And now, standing in that awareness, you have a choice. Will you let this moment pass like so many before it? Or will you finally decide deep in your bones that enough is enough? Because here's what silence does when we give it too much space. It grows comfortable. It becomes familiar. And soon we mistake comfort for safety. We tell ourselves stories like, I'm used to it, or this is just how things are. But deep down, beneath the layers of self-protection and quiet resignation, there's a voice that whispers, I want more than this. That voice is not asking for perfection. It's not demanding that you suddenly become fearless or endlessly social or magically healed overnight. No, what it's asking for is far more powerful. Action. One small step toward connection. One brave decision to show up as yourself, even when you're afraid no one will stay. Because healing doesn't happen in theory. It happens in movement, in moments where you choose courage over fear, even if just for a second. And every time you do, you shift the energy of your entire life. So ask yourself this: what would your future look like if you kept going? If you didn't wait for the perfect timing, the perfect person, the perfect version of yourself, but simply started right here, exactly as you are? Imagine waking up 6 months from now and realizing that something has changed, that you've built friendships that feel real, that you no longer scroll through contacts wondering why no one calls, that you found people who see you, not just your smile but your struggles, not just your words but your heart. How would that feel? Would it bring tears to your eyes? Would it make your chest ache with relief? Would it remind you that you were never meant to walk through life alone? Because that future is not out of reach. It's waiting for you on the other side of fear, on the other side of silence, on the other side of pretending everything is fine when it's not. And all it takes is one decision, to begin. Not someday, not maybe, but today. Because here's the secret: nobody tells you about change. It doesn't come after you've figured everything out. It comes after you've chosen to move forward despite not having all the answers. It comes after you've said yes to discomfort, yes to vulnerability, yes to showing up even when you don't feel ready. Real transformation begins when you stop waiting for permission and start living as if you already know your worth. Because you do. You are worthy of love, of friendship, of belonging. Not because you've earned it by being perfect, not because you've suffered enough to deserve better, but simply because you are human, because you feel, because you care, because you matter. And the world needs more people who are willing to be real, who are willing to break the silence, who are willing to say, I'm hurting, but I'm still here. I'm learning how to connect again. I'm choosing to believe in something greater than survival. That kind of courage changes lives, yours, and the lives of everyone who sees you take that step. Because when you allow yourself to heal, you give others permission to do the same. When you speak your truth, you create space for someone else to speak theirs. When you choose connection over isolation, you remind the world that we were never meant to walk through life alone. So take a breath. Let go of the belief that you have to fix yourself before you can belong. Let go of the idea that you need to be perfect before you're loved. Let go of the fear that if you open your heart again, it will only get hurt. Because yes, there's risk in vulnerability, but there's also freedom, there's growth, there's rebirth. And the moment you decide that loneliness no longer defines you is the moment your journey toward real connection truly begins. So ask yourself this: are you ready to stop surviving and start living fully? Are you ready to build friendships that nourish your soul instead of drain it? Are you ready to finally feel seen, heard, and understood? If the answer is yes, and something inside you already knows it is, then keep listening, keep going, keep believing. Because the next chapter of your story is waiting, and it starts with a single, brave step forward. You've already made the most important decision, choosing to believe that something better is possible, that your loneliness isn't permanent, that your longing for real connection isn't weakness, but a signal that you're still alive inside. still reaching, still hoping. And that hope, it's more powerful than fear, because fear tells you to stay quiet, to keep hiding, to keep pretending everything is fine when it's not. Fear says you've been hurt before, why risk it again? But hope whispers something different. You are still here. You are still capable of love. You are still worthy of belonging. And that whisper is growing louder. It started as a flicker in the dark, a quiet question, what if I'm not alone in this? Then came the realization that healing doesn't mean being perfect. It means showing up, even when you don't feel ready. Then the truth that connection isn't something you wait for, it's something you build. One message, one conversation, one brave step at a time. And now, here you are, standing on the edge of something new. Not because everything is figured out, not because all your fears have disappeared, but because you've decided, deep in your bones, that enough is enough. You are tired of silence, tired of pretending, tired of watching life pass you by while you wait for someone else to make the first move. Well, today is the day you do. Today is the day you choose yourself. You choose connection over isolation, truth over pretense, growth over comfort. And most importantly, you choose to believe that real friendship is still possible, even for you. Because it is. You may have spent years thinking that your loneliness defines you, that you've missed your chance, that everyone has moved on and left you behind. But that's not true. Time does not run out on human connection. The heart does not stop needing love just because it's been ignored for too long. You are not too late. You are not too broken. You are not beyond repair. You are simply human, and humans heal. Humans grow. Humans find their way back to each other, even after years of silence. So imagine what happens when you finally decide to reach out, when you send that message, when you say, I need someone, when you allow yourself to be seen, not just your strength, but your struggle, not just your smile, but your tears. That moment changes everything. Because healing doesn't happen in isolation. It happens in the presence of someone who listens, someone who says you matter, and sometimes that someone starts with you. When you treat yourself with compassion instead of judgment, when you speak to yourself with kindness instead of criticism, you begin to shift the energy of your entire life. Because self-love is not selfish, it's foundational, and every meaningful relationship begins there. You cannot give what you do not feel. You cannot receive what you do not believe you deserve. So start there. Start with the belief that you are lovable exactly as you are. Start with the courage to show up even when you're afraid. Start with the understanding that healing is not a straight line, but a spiral. Some days you'll feel like you're moving forward. Other days you might feel like you're going backward. But as long as you keep going, you are growing. And growth always leads to change. Real friendships are not built overnight. They're built through moments, through shared laughter and quiet support, through showing up even when it's inconvenient, through choosing each other again and again even when things get messy. And you deserve that kind of connection, not because you've earned it by being perfect, but simply because you're human, because you feel, because you care, because you matter. So take a breath. Let go of the belief that you have to fix yourself before you're worthy of love. Let go of the idea that you need to be perfect before you belong. Let go of the fear that if you open your heart again, it will only get hurt. Because yes, there's risk and vulnerability, but there's also freedom, there's strength, there's rebirth. And the moment you decide that loneliness no longer defines you is the moment your journey toward real connection truly begins. So ask yourself this: are you ready to stop surviving and start living fully? Are you ready to build friendships that nourish your soul instead of drain it? Are you ready to finally feel seen, heard, and understood? If the answer is yes, and something inside you already knows it is, then keep listening, keep going, keep believing, because the next chapter of your story is waiting, and it starts with a single brave step forward. You are not alone in this. Even now, as you sit with these words, there's a quiet truth settling inside you. Something deeper than fear, stronger than silence. A realization that the loneliness you've carried for so long was never meant to be permanent, that it was never a reflection of your worth, but a signal that something needed to change, and change has already begun. Because healing doesn't always announce itself with fireworks or sudden clarity. Sometimes it starts like this: a single moment where you stop pretending everything is fine and finally allow yourself to feel what's been buried beneath years of survival. A moment where you say, I'm tired of being invisible. I'm ready to be seen. That moment changes everything, because once you see yourself clearly, once you acknowledge the depth of your longing, You can no longer go back to settling for less. You can no longer ignore the ache of isolation or pretend that surface-level interactions are enough. You begin to understand that real connection is not a luxury. It is a necessity, a part of being human that you were never meant to live without. And so, you start choosing differently. You start speaking up when before you would have stayed silent. You begin setting boundaries that protect your energy instead of giving pieces of yourself away just to feel included. You learn how to listen to your own needs before trying to meet everyone else's. Because here's the truth. You cannot give what you do not feel. You cannot receive what you do not believe you deserve. And until you reclaim your right to be loved, not just by others but by yourself, you will keep attracting relationships that mirror your internal belief that you are not enough. But you are. You are more than enough exactly as you are. Not because you're perfect, not because you figured everything out, but because you are capable of love, of growth, of courage, of showing up even when it's hard. And every time you choose honesty over hiding, every time you lean into discomfort instead of retreating, you prove that you are stronger than fear. Because healing is not about erasing the past, it's about rewriting the future. It's about understanding that the pain you've experienced, the rejection, the abandonment, the silence, was never a reflection of your value. It was simply life shaping you into someone who could one day stand here and say, I've been through hell and I am still here. And that is powerful. More powerful than any wound. More powerful than any voice that ever told you you weren't worthy of love. So ask yourself this. What kind of life do you want to build from here? Do you want to keep surviving in silence? Or do you want to start living fully, with people who see you, support you, and remind you that you are not alone? Because that life is possible. It begins the moment you decide that loneliness no longer defines you. The moment you allow yourself to believe that you deserve friendships that nourish your soul, instead of drain it. That you are capable of building connections that feel safe, meaningful, and real. And it won't happen overnight. Healing never does. But every step you take, every message you send, every boundary you set, every truth you speak, adds up to something bigger than fear. Something unshakable. So take another breath. Let go of the belief that you have to earn belonging. Let go of the idea that you must be perfect before you are loved. Let go of the fear that if you open your heart again it will only get hurt. Because yes, there's risk and vulnerability, but there's also freedom. There's strength. There's rebirth. And the moment you decide that loneliness no longer defines you, is the moment your journey toward real connection truly begins. So keep going. Keep believing. Keep choosing yourself. Because the next chapter of your story is waiting. And it starts with a single brave step forward. You've already come so far. You started with a quiet ache, an unshakable feeling that something was missing. A loneliness that lived beneath the surface, hidden behind smiles and small talk, masked by distractions and routines. But you didn't ignore it. You faced it. You allowed yourself to feel it, to name it, to understand that it wasn't weakness or failure. It was simply your heart reminding you of what it needed. And now, after everything you've read, after every truth you've confronted, you stand at a crossroads. One path leads back to silence, to waiting for someone else to reach out first, to convincing yourself that this is just how things are, that maybe you're better off alone, that connection is too risky, that love always leaves. The other path leads forward, into courage, into action, into the kind of life where you no longer wonder if anyone truly sees you, because you've built relationships that do. Which path will you choose? Because here's the thing, healing doesn't wait for perfect timing. It doesn't require you to be fearless or flawless or fully healed before it begins. It starts in the moments when you choose to move forward anyway, when you send the message even though your hands are shaking, when you speak your needs even though you fear they won't be met, when you allow yourself to believe deeply, fully, that you are worthy of real connection. That belief changes everything, because once you start seeing yourself as someone who deserves love, you begin attracting people who reflect that truth back to you. Once you stop hiding behind "I'm fine," you open the door for others to show up as themselves too. And once you decide that loneliness is not your destiny, but simply a chapter, not the whole story, you reclaim your power. And that power is unstoppable. You may have spent years believing that vulnerability was dangerous, that showing emotion made you weak, that protecting yourself meant staying emotionally distant. But here's what you now understand. True strength isn't about isolation, it's about connection. It's about the courage to let people in. It's about knowing that even if someone leaves, you will still be okay. Because your worth is not tied to anyone else's presence. Your value is not dependent on approval. You matter simply because you exist, and that truth is enough to build an entire life upon. So imagine what happens when you start living like you believe it. Imagine waking up and no longer feeling like you're performing just to be accepted. Imagine speaking your mind without fear of rejection. Imagine building friendships that feel deep, meaningful, lasting, not because they're perfect, but because they're real. That life is not some distant dream. It's within your reach, right now, today. All it takes is one more step, one more brave choice, one more moment of saying, I am ready. Because healing is not a single event, it's a series of choices. Small acts of courage that add up to something powerful. Every time you choose honesty over hiding, every time you lean into discomfort instead of retreating, every time you remind yourself that you are not alone, you reinforce the truth that you are growing, changing, becoming the person who finally breaks the cycle of silence. And that person, they're strong, they're resilient, they're deeply, beautifully human. So don't turn away now. Don't retreat into old patterns just because they feel familiar. Don't let fear convince you that nothing will change, because everything already has. You see the world differently now. You understand yourself more clearly. You know that loneliness is not permanent. It's simply the space between where you were and where you're going. And you are moving. You are growing. You are becoming. And every step you take from here on out is powered by that knowledge. So keep going, keep believing, keep choosing yourself, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Because the moment you stop waiting for permission to belong and start living as if you already do, is the moment your world begins to shift. You are not too late. You are not too damaged. You are not beyond hope. You are standing at the edge of something new. And all you have to do is take the next step. One foot in front of the other. One brave choice at a time.